the people who always try to find those shortcuts, they don't have something that's sustainable or scalable or anything that they can monetize. They're just trying to get the quickest win. And I mean, obviously, if you even run a business, we know that there's no quick wins in businesses, right? Like it's long-term, success that comes from just like being in, the trenches and just keep trying different things. But it always goes back to the content and just making sure that you're consistently doing that market research, and it doesn't matter what platform it is.
Welcome to Show Me the Nuggets, where each week Joe chats with world-class entrepreneurs to find out the key principles, strategies, and processes that lie behind their outstanding achievements. Now, your host, the no bullshit serial entrepreneur, Joe Troyer.
Hey everybody, it's Joe Troyer, and welcome to another episode of Show Me the Nuggets. I'm excited today to have on fellow agency owner, longtime friend, man. I've known Michael for quite a few years, Michael Roddy, and we're going to be talking about his agency. We're going to be talking about how he is absolutely crushing it on Instagram for himself and also for his clients. And something we don't really talk about a lot here on the podcast is Instagram. So I'm excited. I've been wanting to get Michael Roddy on the podcast for quite a few weeks now. We've had some scheduling conflicts, but man, I'm excited. The day is finally here. So Roddy, man, without further ado, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me on here. And little tough getting us on that scheduling thing, but I do take full responsibility for that. So it's all good, but I appreciate you having me on here, man. I'm excited.
You're a busy guy, man. So for those of the audience that don't know you, tell everybody about yourself. Obviously, you're in Orlando. You do Instagram. You run a little agency. You do a bunch of stuff for e-commerce companies and other companies in this space. You've been doing it for a while now. But give everybody a little background on yourself.
Yeah, man. So, when I was, I guess you could say even like four or 5 years ago, just your typical student, just a bartender, honestly, and just trying to make some money and then keep the bills paid. And I had been going to school for, graphic design, content, and stuff like that, and got a job quickly at one of my buddy's agencies, Lo Silva, who is a, really good personal friend of mine and best friend, honestly, and he's a mentor to me. And, started working with him and these guys and just started kind of learning the ropes on the digital marketing space. And within a week of working there, I just dropped out of school. I was like, this is where I need to be. These guys are awesome. I think this is a good move, even though no one thought so. But, throughout the time, I was just doing content creation, helping Los out with this, personal brand and stuff. And funny, not funny at the time, but, he had gotten his Instagram stolen by these two kids. And basically starting from ground zero, he was like, I need to build my personal brand again. Roddy, why don't you, you understand content. Why don't you just jump in Instagram? And I knew nothing. I took a course, learned as much as I could. I sucked at it for a while, but started seeing some success by just taking the course by like 2, 3, maybe even 4 times. I would just take it over and over again. Started actually getting results, learning the platform, the algorithm, seeing what's working, testing a bunch of different things. And I started traveling, to these events that, my mentor was speaking at, where all these other big hitters and stuff were in the green room. And me and Los were chatting about his Instagram and stuff. And they overheard and they're like, yeah, you do Instagram? And, Los was like, yeah, tell him. And I was like, yeah, I do Instagram. They're like, oh, how much do you charge? And I was like, I charge like $5K. I just made that number up. I just knew it was a nice high ticket number at the time that people were willing to pay. And these guys were like, okay, yeah, send me an invoice. And I was just like, oh, shit. Like, this is sweet. So, we started that business by just kind of a couple of big people, like Bedros Cooling was like my first client, right? And I didn't try to make any money with them. I spent all of the money I could on the budget to make sure that I got the best results, just adding value for them. So for a while, I kind of just did that. Like every time I got a new client, I would just make sure that, I just over-delivered for them, made sure I just continued crushing, right? Just because I knew that if I could help these guys out, their network itself was going to be big enough for me to get those referrals. So, over the time, I just kept working with the same guys. They kept giving me referrals. And yeah, I built a pretty substantial agency that's going to, if it doesn't do 7 figures this year, it'll 100% do 7 figures plus next year. But yeah, I just got into Instagram and it was just a heavy hitting thing at the time. And obviously now it's even more imperative. So, I went from bartender to, working at an agency with my mentor to now running my own business. And it's been awesome, man. And just really helping out, big people in the space has just been kind of like the foundation of like where my success came from. Because I went from, being Losis photographer or video guy to now I'm Roddy, and I go to these events and, starting to speak and stuff like that. It's been incredible.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. Fantastic story. And I love that it's like every win is just rolling into the next win, right? It's like, what do I
100%.
have to do to get this person to know, like, and trust me, right? To
Yeah.
love my service and to refer me to everybody that they know, right? It's
Yeah.
really hard for you not to build that snowball effect rolling down the hill, getting bigger and bigger and bigger when you
Yep.
have that attitude every day in your business.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing people too don't really take into consideration is that everybody who's trying to work with someone is always thinking like, well, like what's in it for me? And if you think like that, then you're never going to get anywhere, right? So my thought process is when I met these people is like, like what can I do for this person that's going to be like a wow moment for them to be like, this guy is like the best, right? Because on the short term, like I didn't care. I knew that like the long-term relationship was going to build me not only a good relationship with them, but build me something that was super sustainable and obviously scalable.
That's awesome, man.
Hey, real quick, before we dive into the rest of this episode, real quick, I promise my team and I would like to personally thank you, our audience, yes, you listening right now, for all the amazing support that you guys have been giving the podcast. The growth has been just crazy, and I want you to know that we're super, super appreciative to you. So we've been trying to think of something cool that we could do to give back to our audience, to give back to you guys. And I think we've come up with something that's really, really unique. It's something that's special. So here's the thing. The team here at Digital Triggers, my own little team here, has decided that we're going to give away a gift pack that includes our top of the line resources to sell SEO, right? We know that so many of you guys out there are agencies. This is going to literally give you contracts, proposals, pitches, scripts that you guys can use, outreach templates. It's a pack of assets and collateral for anybody wanting to sell SEO services or marketing services to any type of business, not just local businesses. This has been used to land e-com deals, all kinds of deals out there. So if you didn't hear that, let me make it a little more clear. Okay, our Digital Triggers family is giving you some of the best of the content and the resources that we've ever put together, absolutely free, just for listening to the podcast. Okay, all that you have to do is go to digitaltriggers.io/gift pack. And you are good to go, folks. It is that simple. We'll make sure that this page is up and ready for you guys by the time this episode airs. And with that being said, let's get back to the episode. All right, that was all right. I think that went okay.
I want to talk a little bit about like the day-to-day and the business of the agency, so to speak, right? Like actually running that. And I want to go down that rabbit hole for a second. But then I want to come back and I want to really talk about Instagram and kind of what are the top things right now that are working? What are the things that everybody's kind of goofing up on? What's the 80-20? And I want to make sure that everybody today can walk away with a couple of tactics to actually grow their Instagram and get some results from it. Does that sound good?
For sure, man. Yeah. So, when I first started doing this, it was just me. It's kind of like a one-man show. I knew content was like the thing that I was the best at, which is honestly at the end of the day. If people think that there's always some sort of secret or there's some sort of cheat code or, fast track, it's really not. It's market research, content, and content distribution. So if you know content and you can get market research dialed in, then you've got yourself like a really good foundation to really help you start building that business. But once I got into getting 4 or 5 clients, I was like, holy, I can't do this anymore myself. So, funny enough, the way I grow pages is by leveraging a massive network, right? A massive network of niche specific viral pages where I can take my clients' best content pieces or create content that's, congruent with those pages' content to drive traffic from there, is essentially cross-pollinating, right?
Yep.
And people try all these different things. There's giveaways, there's third-party, tools on automations, but none of that is really sustainable or scalable. And it's even harder to monetize those audiences. And I've tried them just to test them out. They're great. They do well for like credibility, vanity stuff, but the most sustainable way that I've ever, scaled people's brands and personal brands and pages is just the shout out method. But it's more than shout outs. It's your network. It's the quality of the pages that you're leveraging within those audiences, because a lot of these pages don't have authentic audiences,
Yep.
So I've spent plenty of money testing those pages out, making sure they have quality pages, making them send me screenshots of their stuff. So, now I got a full team, right? I got a team that does the growth. They manage my network. I've got a graphics team, and I got somebody on my team whose job is literally to just find more pages that we can leverage for growth, because obviously you can't use the same pages over and over and over again for at least one of your clients. You're going to exhaust that audience, right?
Yep.
So you want to find new pages. So, my entire business model, I've got like one guy who's, I would say, pretty much almost my partner now. But the way it's been lucrative is that I've just used on-demand employees. So every time I get a new client, I bring on somebody specific to that client that can, help with the delegation of the work and the fulfillment. And, for the most part, my clients are with me for almost over a year. Like, I have a pretty damn good client retention. But if I lost a client, I'm not stuck paying out of pocket for a retainer and someone on my team. I just lose those employees, right? They're not contractors. They're just like people from Upwork or Fiverr and stuff. And the main people that I keep on the team are the people that help me with the growth, because that takes the most time. And that's not something that you can teach somebody on Fiverr, Upwork. So that person is pretty much somebody that's always on my team no matter what. But yeah, like, those on-demand employees was a huge moment for me to help scale the business, because for a while I couldn't take on more clients because my fulfillment was going to start, losing the quality, because I was doing too many, wearing too many hats, doing too much. So if anybody ever asks me like, oh, I want to start, build a big team and stuff like that, I'm like, you don't need a big team. You just need to be resourceful. And you need to figure out what stuff that you can delegate to for people that are like, freelancers, essentially. So that way you're keeping yourself checked and not losing out on money if you lose a client, because, stuff happens, pandemics like this, obviously. And you could lose clients, so you always want to keep yourself safe. So that way, if you do have a bad month, it's really not that bad of a month, because then you're not stuck paying a giant overhead.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, man, that makes perfect sense. So
yeah.
The content team is the team that kind of goes up or down depending on how many clients you got, right? And then
pretty much, yeah.
Team is the consistent team that you've been working with forever. And those are the ones that, like, that team's your most valuable team, right? Like, without them, your business don't have a business. So
those guys are pretty much almost everything for me. You know what I mean? Like, because like they have my network, they're helping me grow the network still, which is something I used to do. They're managing all the relationships with the pages. They're, scheduling out the campaigns. So without those guys, like, I would be in a lot of trouble. There's no way I could possibly do that and still run the business. Because at this point now I'm just doing sales calls and just overseeing the operation, making sure things are good. But, like I said, I just went to Mexico for like 7 days last week and barely took a phone call, and everything was fine when I got back. So it's all good. At least I know I have a real business and not some sort of a hobby, right? That's like the biggest thing I think for a lot of people. But yeah, growth is, if I could tell people about anything with growth, it's that you need to focus on, market research. It's like anything, you need to figure out like, all right, what niche am I in, or what niche is this client in? Then go find people that are their competitors and see what they're doing that's working. Yeah. And then you got to make sure that the people that you're looking at for competitor research too have authentic pages, which is highly important, because you don't want to be looking at someone's page to replicate content based off of if they don't have an authentic audience. And you can always do a little formula that's manual. So if, like, let's say you got 100,000 followers, you want to be getting 1,000 to 2,000 likes a photo. And for every 100 likes, you get one comment. That's pretty authentic, and it's pretty hard to fabricate that. And then you can also go use Social Blade, which is like a daily growth tool, or Ninjalytics, and they can kind of give you a little bit more back-end information. But that's a good formula for you to make sure that the person that you're looking at has a good audience. And if they have anything over 3% engagement, that's pretty damn good. So, if you're looking at your competitor standpoint, you want to make sure you find out what they're doing, seeing what's working, and then test it. The other thing with content now going into that is that content's going to dry up. Your content should never be the same. I've worked with people who are just starting out, and I've worked with people who have, millions of followers. And usually the people with the big audiences have a little bit of an ego, and they're like, well, I got 1 million followers. My content's just not getting the engagement it used to. And they always blame the algorithm. And I'm like, it's not the algorithm, it's your content. It's just trash. These content pieces are from like last year, right? Like you can't keep using the same content. You got to give people new things.
Yep.
Because going back to what I said in the beginning of this, people on Instagram, the only thing they're thinking about is like, what's in it for me, right? Why should I follow this person? And if there's no incentive to follow you, there's not going to be any people that are going to actually convert to be followers on your page. You're just going to have a page with a bunch of profile visits, maybe some engagement, but you're not going to have any growth.
Yep.
So content's the next thing. And then content distribution is essentially taking those content pieces after you've done a bunch of testing and making sure that it works. And then either distributing those content pieces to those viral pages that we use for the campaigns, or looking at the growth, looking at the pages that we're leveraging for growth and traffic, seeing what content works on their page, and creating content with my clients, personal brand images on there and stuff that are pretty congruent to theirs. So that way you're maximizing the most visibility on those pages, because the more engagement that those pages get with those content pieces, the more traffic that my clients are going to get to their page, giving them a better conversion rate on the followers with the amount of money that we're spending on those pages for growth.
Yeah, man, it's really funny. I do a lot of SEO. I do a lot of outreach. I do a lot of growth on that side. And it's really funny how similar the two businesses are. If you looked at or the two systems are between that model and between the Instagram model that you just explained, they're almost the same, right? I mean, it's like we're creating content, we're outreaching to people and pitching the content and trying to get it placed. Once it's placed, we're trying to build the relationship with the blogger, right? To do more of that, to build our proven Rolodex. And then once we have that Rolodex, we just keep using that for new opportunities, right? For every new client, for every new page that we want to grow. It's the same thing.
Yeah, and it really is the same thing, right? And that's why the people who always try to find those shortcuts, they don't have something that's sustainable or scalable or anything that they can monetize. They're just trying to get the quickest win. And I mean, obviously, if you even run a business, we know that there's no quick wins in businesses, right? Like it's long-term, success that comes from just being in, the trenches and just keep trying different things. But it always goes back to the content and just making sure that you're consistently doing that market research. And it doesn't matter what platform it is, it's always going to be about that. And the platforms like Facebook or Instagram, specifically with Instagram too, the only thing Instagram cares about is the user experience. They don't care about the people like me that are trying to, monetize our Instagrams and sell things. They don't make money off of us. To them, we're almost like a liability because we can spam people or create a bad user experience. So the reason why it's so much harder to grow or it's so much harder to get visibility is because people used to know the algorithm. So they used to be able to use these specific little cheat codes to get more growth quicker with terrible content. And then they switch up their algorithm to the point where almost no one knows what it is. And it's because they just don't want to go work harder on the content. They don't want to put in the work on the market research. And if you can just put in the work, I was sitting here today, I have calls with my team for an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours, and it's just on creative stuff. It's just on content, because we know that if we can knock out 2 hours and get massive amounts of different content that we've all kind of gathered from market research, that gives us a massive advantage that we have more content to test and see what works, rather than just trying to figure out the algorithm, right? It's like going to school, right? You spend all this time figuring out how you're going to cheat on this test, when you could have just taken all that time that you try to figure out how to cheat on those tests, and you could have just actually studied and just gotten a better grade, So it's the same thing, it's just about actually taking the time to doing that. And after you do the market research once, you don't typically have to do it again. You just got to create a glossary of all of your competitors, and also a glossary of the pages that you're using for growth, and just making sure that you always have that backlog of information and content to look back and see if there's anything that's been changing in your niche.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense, man. When it comes to Instagram posts or Instagram stories, where do you see the success these days? It seems like when stories first came out, it was man, stories is everything. But I'm curious now, in your point of view, obviously, this is your expertise.
Oh yeah.
The value of each, or where's the value, or where's the concentration, or does it lie in both?
So I haven't I used to be heavy into stories, right? I would always do stories. That was kind of like the way to do it. And then my buddy had come out with a tool. Unfortunately, the tool does not exist anymore. And this tool gave you the ability to like almost create an in-platform DM subscribers list, to where you can broadcast DMs out to all the people that have ever DM'd you a keyword. So I used that for a while, which crushed, but then obviously went down. So now I'm back to stories. But I will tell you that we just did a story sequence, two of them probably last week, that made us 75 grand for one of our clients, and that's astronomical. But it's the same. I use the same kind of method that I use for everybody. For this specific person, it just happened to be very appealing to his audience, and it goes back down to like making sure that you have the avatar and the messaging dialed in. So you could do two different ways. On a story, usually what you do is if you're doing selfie style, or if you're just using those like little graphics where you just have words on them,
Yep.
it's the same thing. You just call out your avatar, who you're speaking to, give them some sort of curiosity factor that kind of keeps them engaged.
Yep.
Then talk about pain points, bring up their pain points and what they're probably struggling with inside of their, their space. Then find a solution. The solution is typically like your services, your offer, your product, etc. Give them what's in the program. Then after that, I usually use polls. So I'll go in there and I'll use polls to essentially like keep people interactive and engaged, just because stories, people's retention seem to be a little bit like less, you see that there's fall off on the story. So you want to keep them engaged and use all those fun tools that Instagram has, like the polls, the swipes, and also putting hashtags on there that are congruent to the person's avatar that you're trying to reach. So that way you get some more visibility from hashtags on there. And then after that, you bring it back in with like, the deliverables of that product, what they can expect, and then a heavy CTA to either swipe up or DM you. For this particular story sequence, we did a swipe up, and it was a Cyber Monday, Black Friday sale on a really, pretty high ticket course, but it made 75 grand. And we just did two of those story sequences, which is massive. And like I said, if you don't like doing stories, because people typically have this weird kind of like, disconnect with talking to their phone. I got entrepreneurs that they speak in front of hundreds of people, but then they go talk on their phone and they don't know what to do. So, I can't be them obviously on the stories, neither can my team. So what we do is we just use those little, like, we just print out or, export like a little black JPEG, and we'll just kind of like almost do it like a story sequence by just like having little type bits and paragraphs essentially pop up, and they almost read it as themselves. So sometimes they do even better than the person talking to their phone, because one, they don't really know when it's going to end. So their retention on that content is longer. And two, they can read all these pain points and everything as themselves. So there's a lot more emotional, there's more of an emotional journey on that story sequence. And then you keep it very interactive by adding in the polls and stuff. And the polls are very important, because if you're not pushing them to a swipe up and you push them to DMs, whoever didn't DM you a specific keyword that you said that you know what they're inquiring about, you can go back and you see who voted on those polls. And whether they said yes or no on your poll, you DM outreach all those people, just two different ones, right? Like, hey, saw that you said yes, how can I help you? Hey, saw that you said no. Well, let me ask you this, how are you doing right now in your business? We've closed plenty of people that said no, because for the most part, they're engaging, but maybe they didn't know that there was something in their business that they needed to help with that could help them, get an extra 10, 20K a month, right? So stories are great. Stories, in my opinion, that's going to be the best way for you to monetize. And it's going to be the best way for you to either create massive ability to get revenue and swipe ups, or have a really good conversation with a qualified lead in your DMs. For me, I like to go DMs just because I like to have more conversations with people, because even if they're not qualified today, I've had people that I've talked to in my DMs that were, leads 3 months ago, and then they hit me back up and they're ready to go. Like leads, in my opinion, they never die. It's just about following up with them and having that conversation and adding value if they're not ready to buy your products, offers, or services.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. So when you work with one of your clients, are you guys typically handling the messaging then for them? Or they got somebody on their team, or how do you guys typically recommend that?
Yeah, so we'll do full management, which basically gives them only like one task. Actually two. It's giving us all the content that we need to post for them or edit, and them being active on stories every single day. But pretty much after that, we do all of the heavy lifting. We do all the content creation. We do all the market research. We do the content distribution. We write all the copy. I have a copywriter on the team. The main thing that we do to make sure that we're writing copy that's not only congruent with maybe their offers or products or services, but linear to like how they would speak in general. So we make them fill out a pretty dense avatar sheet, and then also a protocol sheet where it's not only for them to figure out like even more about their avatar, but it's mainly for us to make sure that we're speaking correctly as them in a way that also attracts their ideal client avatar. But yeah, so that avatar sheet is extremely important, just because it helps us make sure that we're writing copy the right way and making sure that we're dialing on the messaging. Because a lot of times people who come to me who have worked with other people or they've been doing it themselves and not getting a lot of traction, a lot of times it's their messaging. They're like, well, here's my avatar and this. I'm like, well, it says your avatar is this, but the copy on your Instagram is so far away from how you need to be speaking to them.
Yep.
So once we dial in on their messaging and kind of help optimize the page and the content and everything, we start doing the growth campaign. We'll do the growth campaign probably towards the end of the month if it's like a first month person that we're working with. Yep. Just because the first 2 weeks is like all the research, all the delegation of the content, the creation of the content, and the content strategy. And then after they review it and they like it, we'll start posting and testing content. Once we start seeing that we're getting a little bit of scalability on the engagement, that's when we'll go and start the growth campaign, because traffic will amplify that all. And, people are like, oh, you got more followers and you get more engagement. You also will get more reach and visibility on hashtags and the Explore page, because hashtags in the Explore page, they're only showing the best content pieces. And when you have traffic going to your page and you're getting all this new engagement, you're getting all this growth, that's when Instagram's like, oh, this is a good page. Let's push it more, because Instagram, again, wants the user experience to be good. So all the pages that are performing the best and having the most visibility and engagement, those are the ones that are going to get way more hashtag impressions and Explore page impressions. So now you're getting growth from the traffic of our network. And then you're also now getting traffic from hashtags and Explore page, which is giving you 2 different traffic sources, giving you some exponential growth, and more importantly, targeted growth. And then after that, it's all nurturing with content. You see, it takes about 30 days. We see usually about 30 days for new followers to feel the trust and enough credibility to where they want to reach out and inquire about your products.
Gotcha.
So after the growth campaign is over, we just continue nurturing them, right? We just change up the strategy a little bit to be less optimized for growth and more for monetizing. And then once we kind of start getting some more leads and conversations and the next growth campaign comes in, we go back to switching up the copy to be less sales intended and more like value based, just because we want to make sure that we're not like pushing salesy stuff on the brand new followers, because that'll turn people away like instantly.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, man. Awesome. Yeah. Some great nuggets in there. Dude, this has been awesome. Thank you so much. I feel like I know way more about Instagram than I ever did before.
Yeah.
What do you think, Roddy, if anything, do you think we missed anything that like we'd just be remiss if we didn't talk about? Is there anything that crap, man, like this was good, but
I would tell people, because a lot of people, right, they're not going to really understand growth right away. That's a pretty high level thing. And I have no problem saying that. It's even for me, I still learn things every day on growth. But I think the biggest thing that people struggle with is like posting, right? They won't post every day because they're like, oh, this just takes too much time. Like I use Facebook Creator Studio to schedule out a month to 2 weeks to a month's worth of content. And I spend 1 or 2 days with my team and we get all of it dialed in those 1 or 2 days, so that we're not focusing on posting every single day. We're focusing on the qualified conversations in my DMs from those posts and focusing on market research and growth. Because Instagram is a tool. Don't let Instagram use you as a tool, right? So you just need to figure out, I think the main thing that people struggle with is that they think it's too hard or it's too much work, but it's really just about streamlining that process through the content distribution tools on Facebook that everyone has access to. So, I used to use Hootsuite, Buffer later and stuff like that, but Facebook Creator Studio is a Facebook software tool, so you're not going to get in trouble for using it. You know what I mean? Granted, those aren't third-party blacklisted tools, but they are third-party, and you're still going to get a little bit of diminished reach on there. But if I could tell anybody anything, definitely focus heavy on streamlining your content, because if you're focused every day on writing a caption for the past 2 hours, you're wasting your time and not making the money back that you could be having qualified conversations in your DMs with people.
Love it. Yeah, it makes perfect sense, man. And that's good. I'm glad that you brought that up. I think people spend way too much time on content, and they get trapped in seeing everybody posting all the time and thinking like, man, this is going to kill me. This is going to take forever for me to grow my Instagram because I got to be so active and in it every day.
Yeah. And even big influencers that I've worked with, I'll be watching them or sitting next to them, and they're just on their phones trying to write a caption for an hour. And I'm like, you guys are just wasting your time. Like you could do this in 1 or 2 days and just spend the rest of the week just monetizing, coming up with an action plan for you to make sure that you can turn this thing into a money-making machine, So that's the one thing I can tell people too. And then as far as content goes, content doesn't need to be something crazy edited. What people want in content is value, and you can give people massive value by just talking to your phone and saying something. So don't overthink content, and don't spend too much time every single day posting day to day. Get ahead on your content. Think more on the value and what people can get from it that will give them success.
Perfect, man. Dude, this has been awesome. Thank you so much. I want to wrap it up, and I always ask the same question at the end of every podcast. I always ask for a book recommendation, but I do it a little different. I feel like every podcast out there is like, Roddy, what's your favorite 3 books? But I like to ask something a little bit different. I want to ask you, like, what's the one book that you feel like has made the biggest impact on the way that you do business, the way that you operate, and why?
I read a lot of like health books. The only book that I read recently that was told to me by my friend, my mentor, Leaders Eat Last. That's like a really, really good book. And that book has honestly helped me kind of build the foundation for building like a good culture and a good team, and how to really like structure the way you talk to people, and building a team that's dedicated to working with you. Even when things get hard, you have a good team when they'll do anything and everything for you, even when like maybe the money isn't there that month, right?
Yeah.
So that's a really good book. I recommend it to anybody who's getting into that space. And then the other book I read, which was actually an audiobook, people are into the health, because obviously as entrepreneurs, like you got to be optimized, right?
For sure.
So I read Superhuman. That's a really good book as well.
Gotcha. I haven't read that one. What's that? What's Superhuman about?
It's a book. I think it's Dave Asprey's book on biohacking. Gotcha. And that book is insane. Like that guy his goal is to live to be 185 years old. All it does is talk about all these different things that you can do to like be completely optimized, help build, if you have like hormone imbalances, like what you can do to fix those, the myths that are in nutrition that you can kind of overcome to help build like a more, have more cognitive function. I'm super into those type of books just because, like as an entrepreneur, we're doing high level stuff every single day. And like, I can't be slacking or falling asleep at my desk. Right. So that's a really, really good book. I'd highly recommend it to anybody who's into the health stuff. And if they're not, definitely get into it by reading that first.
Awesome, man. So if somebody wants to connect with you after the podcast, they listen to this, they're like, man, I got to connect with Roddy. I want to chat with him about running some social media for me, or running IG, or helping with content, or they just want to connect with you. They want to follow you. They want more of what you got. Where's the best place for them to do that? I would assume IG, right? Yeah,
for sure. My Instagram, that's my bread and butter. That's where I'm on the most. And if they need my IG handle, it's Mike with 2 E's _ Roddy, RODDY.
Awesome, brother. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really, really appreciate it. This has been great. It was definitely worth all the chasing and back and forth that we had to do to get us at the same place at the same time. But brother, I appreciate it. And hopefully we'll connect here soon.
All right, man. Yeah, I appreciate you having me. And yeah, man, but stoked. Let's do this again here soon.
All right, everybody. This is it. This is another episode of Show Me the Nuggets. If you enjoyed the show, please do us a favor. Like us, review us. We appreciate it, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks for tuning in to Show Me the Nuggets. If you've been enjoying the podcast and find our content helpful, please visit our Apple Podcast page, hit the subscribe button, and leave us a review. Joe and the whole team have been working hard to bring more value to the show. Your feedback will go a long way in helping us make the show better and reach a wider audience.